Hello all, welcome to this first PBL-MOOC hangout session. I'm Geraldine Klaarbout, so one of the instructors of this MOOC. I work at the Faculty of Health Sciences, Medicine and Life Sciences, and my focus is mainly on the use of educational technology and instructional design. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the discussions going on in the MOOC. I'm sure, given the diversity of all participants, that enough perspectives will be coming in to provide you with a very good learning experience. I already saw that, for instance, the students or the participants of Brazil are very active on the discussion forum, and that some interesting issues have been raised. Something new for me, and I think also for the other instructors, is, for instance, a participant who is focusing on hearing impaired students and the use of sign language. So we're very curious how this works out in this MOOC. As you will notice during this MOOC is for us also a learning experience as instructors. But before letting the others introduce themselves, I just want to be sure you know how you can ask questions during this session. This is, if you look on top of your screen, you will see a small rubric. Perhaps you have to hover over it with your mouse in order to see it. And if you click on this rubric, you will see a button with Q&A. If you click on this one, a screen will open, a small screen on the right of your site will open where you can click on and you can write your question. We will look at this question when they come in and we will try to answer them during this session. So let's first continue with the introduction of ourselves. And I'll give the floor to Danielle first.
Okay, I'm Danielle Verstegen. I have a background in cognitive science and instructional science, but I think I'm mostly an instructional designer. I've worked at Maastricht University since 2008, and at the moment I lead an e-learning group in the FHML department, where Geraldine also works. And in this e-learning group, we of course had followed MOOCs with interest, and we'd followed a few MOOCs ourselves. So when we got a question from our executive board about a year and a half ago, we were delighted that they also wanted to gain first-hand experience with MOOCs. To keep leading and learning, to keep up to date, but mostly also to start up a discussion in our university about MOOCs and the meaning of MOOCs for our educational system. We started up this university-wide project with a university-wide project team, and we chose a topic that is at the heart of Maastricht University's educational vision, problem-based learning. That project has resulted in this course, and we're delighted it's now starting. Although I have to say that for me the project was already a success before, because within the project team we've had so many interesting discussions about problem-based learning, about our own educational vision, and I think these discussions are very essential for university teachers, for any teachers really. So I'm looking forward to continuing those discussions with all of you. Over to Herco.
Good morning here in Europe, boa noite in Brazil, and good evening in Asia. My name is Herco Fontein. I'm a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience here in Maastricht. I've been involved in PBL ever since this faculty started in 1995, and I'm really looking forward to well, hearing from all of you all over the world about how innovative education can take shape, given the fact that, well, this is a MOOC on PBL using PBL principles, but there's no one-size-fits-all solution if it comes to implementing PBL, and I think one of the great advantages of having all of us here in this MOOC is that we can learn a lot from trying to build a modern kind of PBL year on year, because it's never finished. The world is changing, and your educational system will change along with it. And I hope that there's a lot to learn here in this MOOC. So back to you, Geraldine.
Okay, thank you, Herco and Danielle. One of the instructors could not attend this session, given that it's for her, as for some of our participants, in the middle of the night, namely Amber Daly. She's also following up on the discussions, and she will be joining some of the Google Hangout session whenever it's in daytime for her. In the rest of this session, Daniela will tell us more about PBL and assignments you are asked to do. Then Herco will talk about group work and some conditions to make it work. And then we come back to the more practical issues of how to join a group or how to make your own team. So I suggest, and before going to Daniela, I just saw that somebody already found the Q&A function with telling that I'm just waiting to the session to start regards. So we're very happy that we see that we have some viewers and that you found how to ask questions. So we'll look into that while we're discussing the other things there. Okay, Daniela, we go back to you then.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have followed MOOCs before, but if you have, you've probably seen that most of them follow a fairly traditional design. They have some lectures by very eminent people, they have some readings and sometimes assignments that participants do individually. And when we chose to design a MOOC about problem-based learning, we thought it would be quite daft to go back to such an old-fashioned information delivery design when we were trying to teach about student-centered active learning forms. So what we've done is a bit experimental. We've tried to follow problem-based learning principles in a MOOC setting as far as we could. Not completely, because of course in this massive setting we cannot provide individual tutors for all the groups. But many other things are the same as in face-to-face PBL. So if you've never seen PBL or have no experience with problem-based learning, it might be a good idea to watch the animation that shows how we do PBL in face-to-face setting. You can see the link on the flyer page or in the team charter assignment. And just like in face-to-face PBL, we have centered learning in this MOOC around authentic problems that you will study in a small group. And just like in face-to-face PBL, we have split these up in two phases, in a pre-discussion or a brainstorm phase and a post-discussion or a reporting phase. You will see next week that these are called the A and the B part of assignments. So group work is essential in this MOOC. It's very important that this first week you fill in your profile, you choose a track, and you make sure that you get into a team. And I think we will hear a bit more about teamwork now from Herco.
Yes. Teamwork, it's essential in PBL. Collaborative learning is probably the stronghold of why PBL works and why it motivates its students. And here in this MOOC, you'll also be part of a team. And that's one of the reasons why we asked all of you to look at a team charter. Why? Because, well, team research shows that you may have a solid group of people together, and they might know what to do, but paying attention to things like what are the strengths and weaknesses of individual members, what are the expectations of each member, things like when are people available, their habits, their working habits, are they available, do they do their best work in the mornings or evenings, the channels you use to send materials around, and the channels you feel comfortable using. These are things that one should deal with them and make sure that all people understand what the contributions of each members are. Once you write them down, these teams usually outperform the teams that do not pay attention to these matters. One of the things to pay attention to is, for instance, how do you divide roles? You'll notice that you'll be in a team with people from all over the world, and there'll be differences in, for instance, how much access you have to the literature. Some people may work at universities and have easy access to databases, and others may not. So you might decide to divide roles on the basis of these kinds of attributes of members. So some may become, well, what pedagogy adepts call searchers, people who search the web for materials or resources and who share them with the other members. Other members might try to use these links and then expand on that based on the experience they have at home. People might say, well, I don't have access to literature, but I would like to summarize what is brought in by every individual member. And of course, you need a team leader who will make sure that everyone knows what is to be expected and when it should be delivered. And since we work with assignments, who will hand in the assignments. So these kinds of preparations are really important to get the team off to a good start, and also to build kind of a trust. It shows that in virtual teams, you will be in a virtual team, there is something called swift trust. Everyone assumes that he or she can trust the other person in the team. But to maintain that swift trust, you really need to communicate. What helps is sharing information on who you are, what your hobbies are, because when people are in a group with like-minded people, it's easier to build trust and to maintain that. Communication is important because it shows that you are committed to the group. So even when you cannot deliver, just letting other people know that you cannot deliver is a sign that you are committed to the group. So make sure you let people know why things don't work out if they don't work out. Yeah, just being prepared, responding to other people's messages, giving feedback. That's really key to getting a virtual team to work good. Because one of the other issues is that you can be in teams with people from different cultures who have different patterns of communicating, and the advantage of working in a virtual team is that everyone is equal. You don't see the context, like I'm now talking to a screen without seeing the people who hear me. I implicitly assume that we're all the same. If we were around the table and seeing each other, then there would be lots of information providing context that would help me find out what the best way would be to address other people. And this lack of context in virtual teams has its upsides and its downsides. The upside is we're all equal, so we can share whatever information we like to share. The downside is when things do not work, when people do not communicate, we're going to assume, well, it's what psychologists call the fundamental attribution error. We assume that someone else does not want to communicate, rather than thinking, well, that there's something happening over there which makes it impossible for people to respond. So this lack of context is something you really have to deal with in virtual groups, and that's why it's essential to share and to be communicative. And for people in some cultures, it may be more difficult than others. I mean, you have high context cultures where it is extremely important to know everything there is to know about someone before you can send a message. So that may also make working in culturally diverse virtual groups more difficult than in face-to-face groups. But these are the challenges you will face, and hopefully they won't distract you from the fact that having all this diverse input can really enrich your learning experience. So that's basically my introduction to group work. Back to you, Geraldine.
Thank you, Herco. And I think there was a question on, well, to elaborate on team member responsibilities. I think you answered that. If not, the person who posed that question can still add another one or a new one to say that it's still not clear. But I think Herco showed that it's important to make some agreements in your group, and the team charter should be an instrument that may help you in this respect. So now you know a little bit more on how to work in group, what difficulties can be that you will be encountering in group. So we would like to urge you to join a team or to create your own team. We looked into some analytics and we saw that we have about 2,500 participants in this MOOC, and still, around 80 teams. So there's still not really a match between those two figures. We also looked at the teams, and we see that some of the teams consist of 1 to 4 members, so there is certainly room to join those teams, or you can still opt to create your own team by clicking on top of the screen in Novo Ads in the platform on team, and there you get the option to either join a team or to create your own team. We noticed that some of the teams are grouped based on the country, for instance. It's not a problem then if you decide to talk in your own language. The only thing we ask is to use your assignments in English. Otherwise, it's hard for the other participants to review your submission. And also for us as instructors, we do not manage all languages. Of course, you can also make a group based on the topic you want to address, the specific interest, but I think you really need to decide, certainly by next week, on which team you want to be. If we see that you're not into a team, we can allocate a group or a team to you, but therefore you need to complete your profile page. We saw that still a lot of people did not complete the profile page, which makes it difficult. We cannot assign you to a group because we need to know the track you prefer to follow. Also, for instance, the preference for communication in order to make up a team for you. And while doing this, while making your profile, please also take some time to point yourself, to pin yourself on a map and to introduce yourself to the discussion forum. This may also help in finding other people who have similar interests and with which you can construct a team. I think that's the most important thing about how to join or create a team, and so we're looking forward to more teams into this MOOC. And then I think there's one final issue that Danielle would like to explain or discuss with you. In the meantime, we'll look into your questions if you pose any of them. Danielle, I'll give the floor to you again.
Yeah, I've seen a question that I will first try to answer before I come into my final comments. I see that Victor asked, how will our work in teams be evaluated? What we've done, Victor, in this massive course is that when you hand in your assignments in time, the assignments will be peer-reviewed by some people from other teams. So this is the B part of the assignment. If you are in the reporting phase, if you hand in those assignments, they will go through peer review. In this massive setting, we cannot guarantee that we'll give you all the team's personal feedback as instructors. So what we'll do is we'll try to keep a general eye, and if we see general issues in many assignments, we will try to discuss them in the Google Hangout sessions. But otherwise you will not get feedback from us, but you will get feedback from some of your peers. The second thing that we will ask you to do at that moment is to evaluate how your team members, your own team members, to evaluate their contribution. And this is not meant to be a punishment for people who have contributed more or less. The only reason we do that is that we are trying to keep an eye on teams that may get too small. So when you have a lot of dropouts in your team and there's only very few of you left, we will try to react to that. And I will talk a bit more about how we will try to do that next week. I wanted to just briefly summarize that for this week, please fill in your profile, choose a track, join a team. We really know from experience that if you join a team yourself or create a team yourself, that's far more motivating, and those teams will probably do better. People will feel more committed. If you are not in a team by next Monday, and you have filled in your profile, we will try to form teams of the people that are left. If you have not filled in your profile, as Geraldine explained, we can't. Then next week you will start working on your first PBL task, and as Harko explained, we really do expect every team member to contribute to their team's work to your own abilities. Some may be a bit more, some may be a bit less, but as long as you communicate about that, that's fine. You will see in NovoEd that when you have joined a team, you have a team space. In the Quick Start Guide, we explain that these team spaces have a closed bit that is really private to your team and an open bit where you can, if you want, have a discussion that other participants in the course can follow. There's one last thing that I wanted to announce, and this is that because this is an experiment for us too, we are very interested in seeing how teams work and why some teams might work more efficiently or more effectively than others. And therefore we plan to follow a small number of teams in more detail. So it's possible that in the coming days you will receive an email from a member of the project team who will ask for permission to observe your team. That means that he or she will join your team and see your team space, but will not really actively participate, be there only as an observer. Please understand that you are free, really free, to say that you don't like that. If you don't like it, we will leave your team immediately and your team space will be private. We hope that some of you don't mind and that we can get some more insight in how virtual teams work and what advice we could give teams next time to maybe work better or more easily. Geraldine, have you seen any other questions that we need to answer at this moment?
I think just a question came in. Give us more insight into the kind of tasks that we shall be performing using the PBL methodology.
Okay, so I'll try to answer that. Starting next week, you and your team will be working on PBL problems. The first problem we'll discuss something like, I've arrived at a new university, they're doing problem-based learning. What is that? With that problem description, we will provide some materials, some written materials, some videos, a mini lecture by one of our professors that you can use as input material, but we really hope that you will also bring in your own materials or search for other useful resources. In the first week, next week, we will ask you to discuss and brainstorm about that problem and to formulate learning questions for your team. Things that you haven't really understood or that you think you need to study more, you need to discuss more in your team. Then you have time to study some resources, and then in the second week we ask you to bring back what you have learned into your team space. You can do that in a chat, or you can organize your own Google Hangout session within your team, or you can use Skype, or you could even use email or whatever channel, Facebook, what you prefer. And at the end of the second week, we ask you to hand in a brief summary of your learning questions and what you've learned about them, and maybe which questions you haven't been able to answer. The first problem that you will work on next week and the week after is the same for all 3 tracks. And after that, you will split up in 3 different tracks. So you will be presented with other PBL problems that are more specific to either the tutor task or the task of a PBL designer, course designer, or the tasks of a PBL curriculum manager or educational manager. I hope that answers your question, but if not, please let us know. Geraldine, I haven't followed the questions now, so if there's anything else we should talk about.
I think we addressed them all. I'm just looking here on the screen. But that's, yeah, those are the questions we got. So I think we addressed all things we wanted to address in any case. So I think we'll close this first Google Hangout session. It's nice to see that some of you found the time to watch this session, and we hope we gave you some more insight in how this MOOC will work, and looking forward to the discussions on the platform and towards our next Google Hangout session then. Unless Herco or Daniela want to say something else, I'm going to stop this session.
No.
Okay?
Thanks for watching all.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.